Well, lo and behold, once again I find myself making yet another video about Todd Howard and Bethesda Broken Works. I didn't really want to, but these days when we see Todd on stage bragging about how awesome his next video game is going to be, we know there is an even split chance that the outcome will be good, underwhelming, or my personal favourite, one of the worst video games ever made. There is no way on God's green earth that I would pass up an opportunity for entry-level coverage of potentially the worst game of this decade, and possibly the biggest video game scandal in 2023. With E3 cancelled in 2022, I've been forced to scratch around in the chicken shit of Microsoft and Bethesda's 2022 video showcase. And since everyone's favourite career liar was there, talking about Starfield, well frankly, it would have been rude of me not to have been rude about it. So I sat down and scrutinised the Starfield presentation in an attempt to figure out if next year's most hyped video game is going to be the next big thing since Skyrim, or even better, another Fallout 76 scenario. Let's be honest, it's going to be a win for me either way. I will stipulate now that despite my cynicism and vitriol, I was once a fully signed up cult member of the Church of Bethesda. If you still are, and you proudly stare up at your Todd Howard poster on your wall, and smugly stare down at the Todd Howard tattoo on your, I'll say chest, but really I mean Johnson, please don't assume I am a hater. I am merely someone who loved Bethesda games for a very long time, made excuses for their failures, apologised for their dick moves, and turned a blind eye to their little lies. Eventually a day came when I couldn't ignore the fact that they never fix their own video games. The modders usually have to do that. They dicked over the modding community regardless. They lie all the time. And then they made Fallout 76. Bethesda has made some great games, but they have done terrible things too. When someone gave me a slap and reminded me that half the Fallout games weren't even made by Bethesda, and they stopped other people from using the Fallout license for an online game so they could eventually shart out Fallout 70 fuck instead, which was a historical injustice in hindsight. I decided to stop lying to myself and leave the Church of Bethesda. So yes, I genuinely hope Starfield is going to be my new favourite game, but I also am highly sceptical about anything Bethesda says these days. So let us not tarry and saddle up this donkey and begin our heroic journey through Bethesda bullshit land. And yes, I will be interchangeably using the term Bethesda as a catch-all phrase to describe both publishing house and developer / hirer of lots of low-paid contract workers who are badly managed.
A year ago, we welcomed the talented studios at Bethesda Softworks to Xbox. Their teams have been hard at work, bringing their franchises to Game Pass, shipping updates to their games, and building new experiences for you to enjoy. We know that everyone has been eager to see Starfield. Our show today has highlighted gameplay, so it's only fitting that we end it with an extended first look at one of the most anticipated games in Xbox history. This is Starfield.
The wonder is not that the field of stars is so vast, but that man has measured it. Anatoly France. Okay, well that is a bad start. Right out of the gates they're using a quote that was most likely the result of nearly a whole hour of Google searching, which they almost certainly chose because it was the only quote they could find that was about space and had the words star and field in it. I guess that's a victory of cringe wordplay over science. I might be making a big deal out of this, and I don't really know the background of Anatole France other than he was a poet, but personally I think talking about space and stars in finite terms, as if we can look at them through a telescope and say, "Capped it," is a bit off the mark. One of the few absolutes that we can state about cosmology and human understanding of the universe is that every time we think we know something for a fact, something comes along that makes us reassess what we had previously considered to be fact. We think a planet has a certain amount of moons, then later we discover another 3. We think a star has a certain amount of planets, then find another one. We think there are X amount of stars in a certain part of the sky, then we make a bigger telescope, look deeper, and realise that there is more shit there by a factor. We think the farthest away star from our sun is a certain distance, and then we spend $10 billion on the James Webb telescope, and it prints out fucking Christmas wrapping paper, from what I can see. If only someone had told NASA about pound shops. My point is that this lofty quote is not the sort of thing that an astronomer would say. It's not the sort of thing an astrophysicist would say. Been there, measured that, is the sort of thing a poet would say. And Anatole France is a 19th century poet. I am obviously making far too big a deal out of this. Possibly. But it concerns me right out of the gate that this game might be putting narrative ahead of science. And that often sucks the sweat off a dead tramp's balls in a science fiction game, because sci-fi needs to know the rules of science even when it's breaking them. Especially when it's breaking them. And this quote isn't very scientific at all. It also frankly concerns me that the first thing we have ever seen of Starfield is a really lazy wordplay. They're definitely going for the Star Trek Enterprise cliche vibe here. With the starscape and low bandwidth audio comms, with a little smidgen of trumpet in the background. Pretty sure that's a trumpet? Or a cornet? I don't know. The one that's made of metal and goes in your mouth. Not used for torture. That one. This is followed by some shit, meaningless graphics, blipping around trying to appear significant. The science fiction decorative equivalent of tinsel. Cue dramatic orchestral sweep and ultra sterile inoffensive logo. Branded goods incoming. Boring looking branded goods.
It's hard to express how excited all of us at Bethesda are to be here with you today. We're so grateful you're spending the time, and we know you've waited a long time to finally see Starfield.
And they've fucked it already. Todd Howard, God Emperor and Supreme Overlord of video game bullshitting, appears on stage in all his slithering, smug, self-satisfied and slightly orange glory. Just having little Todd Howard on stage automatically signals a few facts about Starfield. A mighty bullshitting is no doubt about to occur. Starfield will be full of bugs. All of its features will be exaggerated, oversold and misrepresented in some way. All its failings will later turn out to be well known, well in advance, and they will just say, sorry. No doubt, the modding community will get dicked over. Again. Todd Howard will describe a vision of Nirvana, but he could well be leading us all to the town dump. I'm sorry, but in the light of his legacy of increasingly dishonest video game exaggerations, his presence, front and centre, is going to inspire more suspicion than confidence. At this point, Todd Bullshit Howard is the Lance Armstrong of video game promotion. In fact, the very presence of Todd Howard most likely indicates a few other things are going on. Bethesda hasn't realised that Little Todd is a fucking meme these days. Microsoft hasn't realised that Little Todd is now a brand marketing liability. And possibly that lots of members of the Church of Bethesda haven't realised that he is a career gaslighter. I think it's fucking odd that Todd Fallout 70 fuck Howard is still allowed to front games. Gearbox learned to hide Randy piss-porn voice actor punching Pitchford. Miramax learned to hide Harvey Rape Man Weinstein. Even the royal fucking family learned to hide their sweaty nonce. But for some reason, neither Bethesda nor Microsoft have yet to bonk themselves on the noggin and say, you know what? Todd Howard told everyone that Fallout 76 was a masterpiece, but actually it was a broken pile of shit. Perhaps we should get someone else to promote this game instead. Because frankly, at this point, hiring a car thief or a burglar to do the presentation would have more credibility. I don't know what's going on here really. Sarah Jazz Hands Bond even let him wear his leather jacket and grown-up clothes this time around. So clearly little Todd has convinced them that he is not a massive video game industry liability. In Todd's first presentation after the Microsoft takeover, they dressed him up like a little schoolboy just to show everyone who is boss. But suddenly he seems to be back at the helm, leading the charge. A charge which hopefully doesn't go over a cliff, because frankly, if Starfield is a disaster, Bethesda's already savaged reputation will be left in ruins. Todd Howard said Fallout 76 was going to be great. Todd Howard released the worst video game of the decade. Todd Howard managed to turn Country Roads, one of the most iconic songs of the 70s, into an anthem synonymous with video game failure, development shitshows, and full-out corporate mis-selling. Todd Howard knew it was fucked at launch, but instead of delaying the launch, he decided to lie, because as he keeps saying in interviews, it's not what a game is that counts, it's what it eventually becomes. Or might become, hopefully. What utter bullshit and sophistry. If I go on the internet and book myself a GILF escort for the evening, if they send round a 12-year-old girl, that's no good to me, and I'm not waiting around for it to grow up. This is a fucking sequoia, and this is a fucking sapling. If you describe the sapling as an 80-metre tall tree, based on what it will become, that is called lying, mis-selling, and gaslighting. Todd Little Lies Howard has made a career out of lying to his loyal fans, and stayed in his job because his lies have proven very lucrative and profitable for Bethesda over the years. Never forget that. Todd lies for profit. He betrays his fans for money. So yes, the mere fact that Todd Howard did this presentation frankly destroys any credibility that Starfield has, since we know, factually and with legal precedent, that Howard has already once before stood up, lied his fucking tits off about a game he knew was factually fucked, and just bullshitted us all about it to our faces. So, what did little Todd have to squeak for himself this time around?
Like our previous games, it's an epic role-playing game.
Like our previous games, it's an epic role-playing game. Yeah, well, that's the issue really. Bethesda's games can be either epically bad or epically good. Fallout 3 was epic. Fallout 76 was epic too, but for very different reasons. So after his little preamble he says, let's jump right in. Is it just me? But sayings like, let's jump right in and let's get right into it. Well, ain't they getting a bit tired and cliched these days? It's just one of those phrases that's so old-fashioned and overused. Can't you think of something else? Like, I thought let us not tarry was much snappier and fashionable. So off we go to Crete, which is a moon of Anyasol, which is obviously based on the Greek island of Crete, only written in futuristic space English. If we're going to keep going down this road, I'm quite looking forward to going to Lesbos. Lesbos is nice. I feel sorry for the developers, to be honest. They have hundreds of planets to name in an age where people are triggered by everything. I bet they have triggering inspectors who ponder every bloody planet name, character name, spaceship class and weapon designation, desperately trying to weed out any potentially offensive terms so they can head off that next social media shitstorm. Well, my unsolicited advice is maybe Bethesda should worry less about being politically correct, tell people on social media to fuck off more, and spend all of their wokeness budget on actual game development. Just throwing that one out there. Crete is a barren, featureless, rocky shithole with a base to explore. Get used to that. We will be seeing a lot of this template throughout the whole game, no doubt. Trust me on that one. Landing zone, some rocks, a little base to scavenge, some raiders to kill, some more rocks to mine. You land in the middle of a flurry of dramatic orchestral music in your space Winnebago and let merchandise bot out of the back door because Funko Pops. There are plants to herbalise because busy work. There are space animals that you can hopefully kill out of spite. And you have a heads up display with inbuilt scanners because these days mainstream video games need to tell the player exactly where everything fucking is, what everything fucking does, and exactly where to fucking go in order to make the guided player experience as easy and unchallenging as drinking a thimble of watered down chicken soup. You glide effortlessly down the path to your adventure because that's a meme in video game reveals these days. Clearly walking down a gently inclined path into a serene valley has some Freudian significance that only marketing department people understand. But let's be realistic. This is a new Todd Howard game. If they wanted to keep the Freudian symbolism relevant, we would be climbing through a small hole into a stinking dark cave, whilst hearing the voice of a father figure lying to us about what we're getting for Christmas. Okay, we have grinding. Hear that sound? That sound right there? If you buy this game, that's the sound people outside your room are going to be hearing all day long. And yes, it has to be said, No Man's Sky. Everyone can see it. We go exploring because it's a Bethesda open world game, so there will most likely be a small group of low-level sci-fi bandits in that building, who no doubt can't aim for shit, despite the fact they apparently survived long enough to reach adulthood in this hostile universe, yet die like bots the second a level 1 space idiot shows up with no aim down sight skills and a starter level gun. Sure as shitting in your spacesuit stinks, there are space pirates in the building. So let's do what any sensible person would do, thousands of miles from home, when one tear in your spacesuit means you will suffocate in minutes and there is nobody coming to help you. YOLO in there like a tardass, with your barely disguised P90 because the people who designed the guns are so fucking lazy they just do a Google search for futuristic guns, saw the P90 and thought, it's not technically cheating on my homework if I just plagiarise this. So there you have it, another futuristic space gun based on the 30-year-old P90 because video game developers hire hipsters who know nothing about firearms to design all the firearms. Well, apparently the enemy mobs are spongy and you are too stupid to aim down sights. Maybe it's a good thing that you have a P90. The magazine holds 50 rounds. Because hip firing, you sure as shit are going to need all of those bullets. Thankfully though, you have your extremely high-tech, futuristic and innovative double-barreled shotgun. Jesus, do better. I really hope they appreciate that an actual, real double-barrel shotgun would probably work just as well in space, right? Please all take that weapon wheel as a huge red flag that this game is an Xbox game and the PC version will no doubt be a half-arsed, rushed last-minute port, done as an afterthought with fucked up key binding. The UI will be constructed around the principles of a controller, and on PC this game will, no doubt, be the cause of huge frustration for many PC players. You do a bit of digi-picking, which certainly looks the same as lockpicking in Skyrim, only with digital graphics, so you feel like it was worth paying money for the upgrade. Seriously, even in space, they will make you do lockpicking. I hate to say it guys, but we're only 5 minutes in and already this game is looking like your standard Bethesda low effort, unoriginal, generic, boring outing. It's basically all the standard elements of Fallout with space names given to everything. It's a scavenging, exploring, lockpicking, survival light game with bot NPCs and subpar combat. I'll probably still like it if the base building is good, but damn, that digi-picking is hilarious. We already live in a world where you can buy a crypto wallet for 50 quid that comes with military grade encryption. But apparently, in the future, you just need to fiddle with 4 dials electronically, like on a Walmart bicycle lock. Then you go outside, where you are confronted by 3 hostiles. So again, you do the only sensible thing to do under these circumstances. Take cover. Oh no you don't, you run towards them, close the gap, and then pull out your gun and start hip firing, because hitting your targets reliably and accurately is for noobs, as is taking cover apparently. The combat was about as inspiring as watching a paralytic teenager trying to fuck a deflated blow up doll on a landfill site. It was less tactical than a Japanese kamikaze pilot. There was no use of cover by the player, no enemy AI that I could see, the bullet dispersion is worse than a scattergun, and the whole thing seems quite antiquated, slow and clunky. Like Destiny 2 played at 1/4 speed. In fact, I'm a little suspicious of slow gunplay demos accompanied by dramatic orchestral music. It just feels like they're compensating for a lack of dramatic action. In fact, I'm getting retrospective Cyberpunk 2077 vibes about the whole thing. I can't say why, but I am. Maybe it's the utter overselling or how they're trying to add unnecessary drama to what is essentially killing a couple of NPCs, but there is something wrong here. It's just killing a couple of mobs, right at the start of the game. Level 2 mobs. Is this all they have finished to show us? Because everything else seems to be semi-cinematic cutscenes. I mean, what have they been doing with themselves? What have we really seen? Killing a couple of knobbers and a mining laser. I'm worried frankly. So back to the circus of wild boasts with Todd Howard. Now I generally don't comment on someone's physical appearance because it's disrespectful and demeaning. I neither want to be accused of getting too personal or being unduly critical, nor guilty of objectifying someone. This is why I only ever do it when I think someone is filthy dirty looking and I want to knock boots with them, like Sarah Bond, or if they're fucking odd looking, in this case, like Todd Howard. He looks different. I don't know what it is, but he looks different from last time I saw him. The most sensitive and polite way I can describe it is, he looks mildly irradiated. Like he's had a flash radiation burn from holding 2 bricks of plutonium too close together and they reached critical mass, and they just told the makeup artist to make the best of it. His hair looks frizzy, he's more orange than usual, and the makeup has been slapped on with a trowel. He's not right, I tell thee. Has he been lost in the desert recently? Maybe the contrast settings were wrong on the camera. Maybe the makeup artist was high. I don't know. But he doesn't look himself.
You're invited to join Constellation, who, in the future the game is set in, are the last group of space explorers.
Then Toddler Howard explains how you join the last group of space explorers, like that makes sense. In a pan-galactic civilization in an infinite universe. Apparently everyone's giving up space exploration because, fuck knows, this is a stupid premise. You go to New Atlantis, yet another non-triggering place name. Oh, and New Atlantis is on planet Jemison, named after the first black female astronaut. So no references to real things unless it's woke things. Roger that. consider the memo received loud and clear. And maybe later we'll get to go and visit the city of Rapino on planet Floyd. Oh, that watch will be in the Bethesda store. Mark my words. It will most likely be tatty, cost hundreds and hundreds of dollars, be made in China, and given Bethesda's recent efforts, may well contain toxic mould and poison the wearer. Honestly, look at how they are showing it off. What a shameless merchandise plug. Uh-oh, miserable cross-eyed space lady. Don't they have ophthalmologists in the future, or is this NPC just taking a break from Mass Effect Andromeda and doing a bit of work on the side? Oh no, my mistake, we are actually on a planet populated by people with independently operating eyeballs. How cool is that? I'm sure it's not bad modelling, surely not. At least they aren't doing T-poses, which is better than nothing I guess. Oh god, we've run out of ideas, so we need to send you off to find some artefacts. I mean, it's worked for Halo for 2 decades, and an original idea requires too much effort, right? Now, I don't know if they are trying to make this look like a walking simulator, but that is certainly what they're doing. Imagine the pitch meeting. Okay, we're going to make a walking simulator, but the twist is, it's set in space, looks a bit like No Man's Sky, it's going to be quite woke and derivative of every single sci-fi game that's been made in the last decade, without a single original idea added, other than the really bad logo. The kids will love it. When the presentation starts to discuss the main factions, it started to set my fuckery senses tingling, and I guess it reminded me a little of the subtle wokery of Outer Worlds. The United Colonies, who are the smart, bureaucratic mainstream. Freestar Collective, they have an eagle emblem and believe in freedom. Crimson Fleet, they are space pirates. Thieves basically. Now stick with me here because I'm not a racial profiler nor a linguistics expert, so I'm basically ballparking this based on what I'm seeing and hearing, so please bear with me. So the factions, as represented, seem to align with certain archetypes. The lawful authority, you know, the rational government if you will. Republicans, a libertarian collective according to the wiki, and thieves. So naturally the voice actors are African, white American, foreign, possibly Spanish. And that right there is starting to smell a little bit like the hypocrisy that you see when people try and introduce political correctness into the creative process. And I say political correctness quite deliberately and very literally. The harder people try and portray the world correctly by assigning specific nationalities and races to political profiles in order to not cause offence or to trigger anyone, it always ends up turning into a racist, prejudiced shit show. So what did they do here? Good guy black, right wing fella is white, thief, oh fuck it, let's just make him Spanish, because everyone knows thieving pirates are from that part of the world. Totally not stereotyping. Would you like more racial semiotics with your meal, sir? Thinking I'm making too much of it? Well, the good guy could have been the Spaniard. The right wing fella could have been the African guy. And the thief could have been the white fella. But no, there was a choice and they chose this. And strangely, I can't think of a single video game where the right wing Republican guy was played by a black actor. They do exist, you know.
I bet y'all ain't doing anything to save lives. You piece of shit. That was a damn good show. Ew.
My point is, even in a 15-minute presentation with barely any real gameplay footage, I'm already seeing red flags that the game is painfully politically correct. Why can't the leader of the Libertarians be a young black woman? Because that wouldn't fit the negative stereotype. It had to be an old white dude. So yeah, racial and gender stereotypes are okay apparently, as long as you are doing it to the people you don't like, or in the instance of the pirates, people you don't care about. Now maybe I have post-traumatic woke video game disorder, and I am naturally primed to react to any sign, however small, that a game is pampering. Time will tell if I'm chasing windmills or there is something in this, but I would merely note I am seeing signs of stereotypes and signalling in the game's promotion already, and the livery for the fan Discord is a barely disguised rainbow flag. They certainly appear to be dog whistling to a certain type of crowd. The sort of crowd that liked The Last of Us 2 and thought that having female Nazi soldiers in Battlefield Vagina was a good idea. We will all get to know the truth of it at launch, and maybe I will be wrong. But if Starfield does turn out to be a woke pile of fuck, well, it's not like anyone can claim that there weren't any warning signs. At this point I'm literally struggling to think of sci-fi video games where I wasn't in some way searching for a ring or a sphere. It's the corporate art equivalent of science fiction writing. Now this line was the absolute kicker.
But ultimately, it's not our story, it's the story you create by who you are and the choices you make.
Ultimately, it's not our story, it's the story you create by who you are and the choices you make. That old chestnut. Usually this is a euphemism for the story is a bit shit. Or alternatively, really you don't have that much agency, but maybe you can kill lots of NPCs and roleplay a bit like you're evil. Very few games really pull this one off and define the experience by virtue of gameplay alone. Like Mountain Blade 2 did. So yeah, this cliche trope gets hung up on the wall right next to the choices you make have a real impact on the world. Okay mate, I'll believe it when I see it.
And that starts with character creation. It's our most flexible yet. You can customize all the elements of how you look.
I like it. A quick flash of a large body type to hammer home the woke credentials, but let's not dwell on that image too long. That'd be bad for sales.
You'll pick a background that gives you 3 starting skills.
Says here you spent some time as a diplomat. Having a way with words might prove useful.
Fuck having a way with words. I want to have a way with bombs. Bombs and stealing other people's shit. Absolute guarantee, cosmetic items will be in the shop, and the game will most likely have a shop from 9 AM day 1. They will go easy in the first few weeks, then gradually turn that microtransaction dial all the way to 11 by midway through month 2. I say they got rid of gender because neo-Marxism. No matter, I can still work with this and make a completely realistic character based entirely and accurately on myself in real life. I'll be a big old fat dude, then assign myself as a female and go and hang out in the women's showers. Now that's what I call art imitating life. This being said, if the physics is modelled accurately, if we are allowed to have large or skinny body types, which was very nice of Bethesda, but surely this will have an impact on your ship's fuel consumption and flight performance. Fuck me, if I had a spaceship with 12 crew the same size as me, we would struggle to take off, let alone accelerate fast. These are immutable physical laws. If your crew has more mass, then it's going to take more fuel to accelerate and decelerate them using propulsion. Also, skinny small astronauts will use a lot less oxygen. I really hope this is all accurately modelled in the game physics. I would hate to think that all this plus size astronaut stuff was just tokenism on behalf of Bethesda, and that they don't really care about accurate portrayals of diverse astronauts. On reflection, whilst Bethesda is doing all this stuff to win cool points with the inclusivity police, I doubt they would make any concession to reality in this regard because of the potential backlash if they penalised plus size astronauts. It's like governments taxing sugary foods to prevent obesity. It doesn't work. It's not about the obesity crisis, it's just a devious way to reclassify sugar as a luxury item and tax it accordingly. It certainly never stopped me from eating a whole tray of donuts. These kinds of taxes might work if you moved them along the supply chain to the point of the end user, but a lot of people would be upset if arseholes from the government started showing up at their door with a set of scales and charging them money for being overweight. Personally, I wouldn't care. I'd just stand on the scales, in my pants, holding a tray of donuts and chomping away, waiting for the bill. My point is, this body morphology and non-binary character creation is not a concession to reality or inclusivity. It is merely tokenism. It's a concession to bullshit wokeism. Because if Bethesda was serious about reality, then when the game releases, the ship's fuel consumption would be based on crew weight, and size 0 female astronauts would get an insane boost to their oxygen duration. Let's all keep an eye out for this when the game launches, and then mock them when they bottle it. Donut chomping video game fatties aside, the double tier skill system is great. They had that in Fallout New Vegas.
And you can unlock new skills as you level up, and then you rank those skills up by using them and completing challenges.
It is basically learning by doing, layered on top of a skill point based system. It's absolutely brilliant if it's done right, because it means that even at very high or max level, there is still a point in practicing a certain skill or using a weapon, because you are slowly unlocking the elite perks and benefits. If they don't fuck this up, and that is a big if, then this system is great. Not even kidding. This really excites me, and it was something I loved about Fallout New Vegas. Even if you were maxed out, it was still worth shooting things with a certain gun to rack up those hundreds of kills, just for that elite perk as a cherry on top. I hope they don't fuck this up.
And there's deep crafting systems, from running research projects with resources you find, to crafting weapon mods needed to survive.
Okay, this is clearly lifted from Fallout 4, workbenches, research projects and resource-based progression. I was a sucker for all of this shit in Fallout 4, so I similarly hope they get this right, because it's something that can either be a mini-game in its own right, or a crushing shag.
And you can build your own outposts. These act as a home away from home for survival and resource generation. You can choose where and how to build each one, and you can hire characters you meet to keep it up and running.
Okay, this is very Fallout 4 / Fallout 70 fuck. Base building and research generation. I love this base building shit, but I just really hope it's not all this modular nonsense. I want to be able to actually build creatively and install massive weapon arrays, creating huge kill zones that annihilate the local wildlife. Doesn't everyone? The interplanetary base building is both a potential source of excitement and dread for me. If they turn base building into an artful, flexible, creative process, like Fallout 4 or Valheim, then this could be wonderful. But I do worry that in Bethesda's rush to shark this game out of the back flap, this will be a very modular, arbitrary, cookie cutter experience where you just slap down a few solar arrays, a space toilet, a sleeping module, and then fuck off to grind more mobs and do mining for the next 20 hours so you can buy a new gonk for your helmet.
That's not all. You can even build your own spaceships. You can choose crew members, and yes, you can completely customize the look and layout.
Similarly, this looks nice in principle, but how much choice will you really get? Is it just going to be arbitrary modules that only clip together a certain way, with limited scope for creativity? How much real creativity is going to be allowed here? Is this just going to be a clip together kit with interchangeable parts, or a genuinely creative ship building tool? Obviously, I know that we are all thinking the same thing here. Will we be able to make a spaceship that looks like something rude or offensive?
It's not just how the ship looks, it's how it performs, from engines to shields to weapon systems, because yes, you can fly it.
Because yes, you can fly it. Maybe Todd Howard honestly thought that this was his drop the mic moment. Maybe the intern writing his presentation has never played an actual fucking video game. Maybe Sarah Bond has been putting haloperidol in Todd Howard's glass of morning urine. But if your space exploration game has custom built player spaceships, why would anyone think they could not fly them? This was a fucking strange thing to say. This is like someone trying to convince you to buy a hat and then announcing with a huge fanfare and flourish that yes, you can actually wear it on your head. Why would anyone bother designing their own spaceships if they couldn't fly it? It just doesn't make sense that you would even say that out loud. Have they got so few selling points that they have to bring up the obvious? Or is Todd and his writing team just, well, high? And there it is, at 10:58, the face of no fucks given. That's the face of a man that has spent his life bullshitting his way to riches. He has his top of the range Tesla car, his collection of $1,000 leather jackets, his huge stock options after the Microsoft buyout, and he has no doubt already bought a small private island with a nuclear bunker where he plans to sit out the coming economic collapse. Todd Howard has no more fucks to give, and hasn't for a while frankly, but it is really starting to show now. I honestly thought that Microsoft would be savvy enough to relieve him of command when they took over and just keep him as a mascot in an honorary capacity. I just can't figure out what is going on here. That's a lot of dials and not a lot of feedback. That's a dead head up display. Changed my mind. That little gimbal moves around and there's some low def meters that do something, but that panel looks entirely dead, like a sticker slapped onto the console. Now we have some slightly higher resolution Everspace 2 space combat action and some fairly generic mouse and keyboard dogfighting, like many other games I own, all of which no doubt do it better. It just looks like post Everspace, post Freelancer, post Elite type of game design. It uses the same template but does not appear to bring much to the table. And that's when I saw it. 23 XP. So, being anal, I went back through the entire reveal video and recorded the XP gains. As far as I could see, every single humanoid NPC kill gave you exactly 5 XP. The reason I'm making a big deal out of this is because it means something. It means that these are placeholder XP rewards, and that means they haven't even started working on the level scaling, XP grind and character progression scaling. Basically, they are not at the point where someone can sit down and play through the whole game in even its most basic form. This is really a tiny demo based on a few tiny bits of the game which have no doubt been cobbled together into a format where you can play tiny little sections of playthrough and then edit it together into something that looks coherent. It may well be just individual modules of the game that the devs are working on loaded up in their design software and run as a test. There is no sequential flow in the footage you are seeing. You are only seeing virtual slices of gameplay in specific locations. This is worse than the sort of shit they do at E3 when a game isn't ready. They cobble a few parts of the game together and let you, air quotes used very heavily, demo a tiny section of the game in a tiny section of the map. It's not really the working game, it's dev tools and some game files cobbled together into a mini simulation of what the game will run like, hopefully. So little Todd can say all he likes about this game. He can wax lyrical about the skills and the perk systems, and talk about levelling up this or that and collecting space wank to do your little research projects on alien dildo weapons. But if they have placeholder XP values, that means the game isn't finished in even a rough draft. It's in 500 parts scattered around the garage floor, and they just assembled one wheel, one tyre and a wheel arch took a close-up photograph and tried to pretend that they've already built a whole car. They do not have long to finish this game. This game comes out in 2023, which is 5 months away, so at best, they have 17 months. 6 of those months should be spent on playtesting, bug fixing, changes, alpha testing, beta testing, possibly a public test of some sort, with time enough at every stage to hear all the feedback and fix everything that is broken before throwing it out for another round of testing. I cannot see how this game can launch finished, bug-free and polished on this timescale, considering that at the moment it certainly appears like there is no contiguous, uniform, finished game at all.
For the first time ever, our entire show is focused on games you can play over the next 12 months.
I'll believe that when I see it.
We can't wait for all of you to experience the game.
That should read, "We can't wait to get hold of all of your money again when you pre-order a game that most likely will run like a fucked cat on launch day."
It's when all of you play it that the real journey begins.
The real journey begins. Well, I will agree with them about that. But unfortunately my journey with Bethesda games of late have mostly involved being underwhelmed, having to invoke the help of a lawyer to get my refund on Fallout 76, and having to deal with spurious complaints about my videos, because it has been noted that my Bethesda videos have a nasty habit of being systematically demonetised, and based solely on the maths, I'm sadly forced to postulate that this might have something to do with Bethesda themselves. Okay, back to Planet Jemison. Because you know, this is a tiny slice of the game botched together to create an illusion of a playable demo being in existence somewhere. Think about that. This game has been rumoured for nearly half a decade, and it launches next year, and they can only take us to 2 fucking planets. That does not bode well about the state of the game.
But you can also land and explore anywhere on the planet. And it's not just this planet, it's all the planets in the system.
All the planets in the system. But don't click on them, Todd, because then we might see that they're placeholders too. I mean, let's get real here. If this game was in any state of completion, they would have given us 30 minutes of continuous gameplay. We're getting tiny little snippets. Why all the walking simulator footage? Why? I've barely seen a single fucking interaction so far. At least with Fallout 4 promos you saw lots of goofing around with base stuff and shoot ups in the city, cutscenes and action. This is like an over the shoulder shuffling simulator. We have to wear a very expensive and no doubt sweaty spacesuit with a conspicuous lack of oxygen bottles, FYI. Now a montage of cinematic cutscenes, because we all know that publishers never use those to misrepresent a video game. I don't think it's accidental that they went so hard with the orchestral music arrangement for this reveal, because that is where 95% of the tension came from in this footage. Certainly not the visuals or the gameplay. Believe me, it's the music tricking you into thinking something exciting is happening. Don't believe me? Try playing the reveal back with clown music and see the difference. Actually, let me show you. How about this? How about this? How about this? Suddenly, Starfield doesn't seem like such an exciting prospect, really. When anyone makes a video game in a certain established genre, they obviously look at the competition to see what has come before and what they're trying to compete with. And the weird thing about the reveal was that it was like a stream of deja vu moments. Ah, that bit's Everspace, that bit's Outer Worlds, that bit's No Man's Sky, that bit's Elite, that's a bit Halo. The list goes on. But there has yet to be a single moment that was definitively Starfield. I also think that Bethesda has felt pressured into going large rather than being good. We live in a post-Cyberpunk 2077 world. Say what you like about that game, but damn, they did scale well. It takes a fair while to drive from the north of the city to the south, even at 200 kilometers an hour. Bethesda has a reputation for previously making some of the largest open worlds, and other commentators have noted that perhaps Bethesda feels a lot of pressure to make this game as large as possible, so it can retain its crown, even if that comes at the expense of quality. The procedurally generated worlds introduces its own set of problems, because yes, while certain specified areas are going to be finely crafted and designed as showcase locations, most of the universe we will be encountering will be procedurally generated. I'm very worried that Starfield is going to be a vast, procedurally generated universe filled with shit. It's going to be filled with nonsense worlds, full of mobs to grind and rocks to mine. And scattered throughout this vast universe of nonsense planets, there's going to be a few high quality bespoke locations built specifically because they intersect the main plotline and story quests. I worry that this will not be a fully fleshed out game, and that they know this, and everyone will complain, and then Todd Howard will eventually get some contractors in to add some stuff and then claim, well, it's not the game at launch that counts, it's what it becomes. The maths of the core quest line does not make much sense. From what I could gather, the main quest goes something like this. We live in this enormous, outwardly expanding / inflating universe that only gets larger. They need to find some religious space junk because reasons, and it's scattered throughout the universe. Now space is pretty big, possibly infinite. Space gypsies are pretty small, and definitely finite. So let's do exactly the opposite of what makes mathematical sense. Let's send out one geezer to look for this needle in a haystack. Only there are multiple needles, the haystack is the size of the known fucking universe, and thanks to inflation, that fucker isn't getting any smaller. Hire 10 guys. Hire 100 guys. Hire 100 guys to hire other guys. But hiring one geezer and pointing at the universe and saying, "Search that, will ya?" Let's just say that I already have grave concerns about the integrity of the plot in Starfield. I think the longevity of the game will probably hinge on several key factors. The depth and quality of the exploration, the general activities and busy work, read grinding and scavving, the custom base design mechanics, the custom ship design mechanics. Based on my experiences of other open world games, the ones that really worked for me are the ones where I find myself saying, I keep getting distracted from the main quest line because I'm too busy doing all this other fun stuff. I hope they get all this other stuff done really well, because if they have a bit of a dodgy plot and the side activities ain't that good either, well, they've set themselves up to fail. Let's not forget that when Bethesda released Fallout 76, it was just side activities. There were no real quest lines, and they didn't even hire voice artists because they wanted to save a few pennies. Bethesda is capable of getting everything wrong. When it comes to my personal perspective on Starfield, I will be transparent about the fact that this type of open world game has me slathered all over it. On paper, Starfield is a big open world, survivalish scavenging, sci-fi exploration time sink of a game. It's got combat, resource grinding, base building, spaceship combat, and a seemingly endless numbers of ways to waste your time and planets to explore. I personally loved the base building in Fallout 4, so if this game has that, and you can build giant amazing bespoke bases on planets where you have to cater to the local wildlife and environmental conditions, well, that could be amazing. You could build one type of beautiful chill out base on lovely, friendly, peaceful planets, but on planets that are more like Starship Troopers you might need to literally build a fortress ringed with machine gun turrets. if you so much as want to survive the first night. But right there is the fucking problem. We can sit around here fantasizing about how awesome Starfield might be, and that's what they're trying to encourage us to do. But for all we know, this is yet another Todd Howard bullshit bonanza. The procedurally generated worlds might be as boring as dry toast. The best base building components will only be available in paid DLC, and it could mostly be a non-dynamic, modular and largely soulless activity. Let's not forget that even in Fallout 4, where I loved the base building, most base locations had a couple of fixed enemy spawn locations with little or no deviation, and they never fucking upgraded or fixed that because laziness. And let's also not forget that Bethesda is perfectly happy to launch a game unfinished. Todd Howard is perfectly comfortable releasing a game with the attitude of, we'll fix it over a couple of years. And Starfield is clearly influenced by No Man's Sky. And I hope to fuck that they aren't influenced by No Man's Sky's business model. Because those guys, they lied about the game, released trash, then spent years earning back people's favour. And everyone gives them credit and says, but it's really good now. Well, they've had your money for fucking years, why wasn't it good at the start? It's not impossible that Bethesda are going to copy the business model as well as the general procedurally generated content model of No Man's Sky. I think we also need to brace for impact in regards to wokery. Clearly Bethesda's Ministry of Political Correctness have been hard at work, so anything is possible. You have to remember that this stuff is not done accidentally. The gender, ethnicity, sexual orientation and age of every character in a AAA video game is finely analysed and pored over. They have focus groups and hire professional diversity idiots to have months of meetings about the interpretation of different racial and gender profiles in different roles. And then ultimately a couple of white middle class apex sexual predator senior managers get to make the final decision. However, but even from the little bits of footage I've seen, there is some clear signalling going on. I really hope I've overanalyzed this, and I hope I'm wrong. But yeah, I'm worried the game's going to be woke. It's certainly going to be as buggy as all fuck. That much we know. Bethesda open world games are the buggiest of buggy games. They're the masters of the craft of buggy games. So if Starfield breaks the mould, that will be a literal miracle. Even Todd Howard makes skeevy jokes about how buggy his games are. Idiot. I first realised that Todd Howard wasn't even close to the guy he portrays himself as when he had that uncomfortable encounter during the on-stage interview at E3 in 2019, where Elon Musk showed up. He got into some weird pissing contest with Musk and bragged about having the top of the line Tesla car. It really came off like he was trying to assert himself as the alpha dog in the presence of a Sigma male, and he came off looking like a beta cuck. Todd Howard bragging about his Tesla to Elon Musk is like someone going up to the local drug dealing kingpin and bragging that they made a really big joint. Seriously, I don't know what point Todd Howard was trying to make, but I doubt it will keep Elon Musk awake at night as he shags his way through his string of child brides. That being said, I'm not sure that Elon Musk is really a Sigma male either after all his antics manipulating people with Dogecoin and then fucking them over, and for having completely age inappropriate relationships. This said, I would totally like to have his life and bone all his ex-wives and girlfriends. Although I would draw the line at Amber Heard. As they say in Iraq, never put your cock in an angry goat's mouth. All this begs the question, what do we really know about Bethesda? I guess to some degree all bets are off because they've been taken over by Microsoft and they don't fuck around. But based on past experience, they have made some of my favourite games of all time. They have made one of the worst games ever made. So bad in fact that I had to sign up with the video game lawyer Leonard French's community action in order to screw my refund out of Bethesda. They published some utterly woke shit, like Wolfenstein Youngblood. We know that little Todd Howard is a habitual liar and career gaslighter, We know that Microsoft now owns Bethesda, and now Sarah Bond should have him on a leash. Figuratively, of course. Although secretly, I fantasise she has him literally on a dog leash in the meetings. Ties him to the table leg and kicks him under the table when he's naughty. We know Bethesda is not past trucking in contractors to finish games, with very little oversight, quality control or fucks given, frankly. As stated in some interviews after the fact, when it all came out after the disastrous release of Fallout 76. We know that Bethesda is capable of some of the worst greed and monetization in the industry. We know that Bethesda can be entirely incompetent and break their own game with patches, wiping out accounts, rusting everyone's gear, or just deleting the game off people's systems. We know that Bethesda can, in theory, make games like Skyrim. And it's not impossible that Bethesda has been running the company into the fucking ground for many years for the sake of profit to inflate its sales value for the Microsoft acquisition. They might suddenly change now that the sale is complete. Basically, it's a crapshoot that could go either way. And I think the results will most likely hinge on Microsoft. This is an opportunity for Microsoft to show that things are better now that they are in charge. Starfield has officially been in development for 4 years, and rumoured about for longer than that. I think as far as the gaming community is concerned, this is Bethesda's judgment day. If Starfield is great, Fallout 76 will look like an aberration. If Starfield is shit, it's going to look like Bethesda can't make games for shit anymore. If Starfield is shit, Bethesda will prove they are following the same trajectory as DICE. They are those guys who used to make good games a long time ago. Personally, I think Starfield is going to be average. Average, full of bugs, with huge monetization rolling out a month after launch, and the whole thing will arrive with a fanfare of bullshit and gaslighting, and it will be a bit woke. 6 out of 10 on the woke shitometer. I want it to be good though. I really do. I want it to be my new favourite open world game. The important thing here is do not get on this hype train, because we have no idea if it's going to crash, and frankly I see lots of warning signs. Do not pre-order the game, do not buy this game on launch day, do not get sucked into the hype. Wait a few weeks, wait for the non-access reviewers to spend some time on the game, then make your decision. Look at the public reviews on Steam, look at the public reviews on Metacritic. Wait. I'm sure the starting quests and the first 10 hours of play is polished and lovely, but give this some time to bed in before you decide to commit your money and buy it. Or wait for a discount in a sale. Let's not forget that sometimes we need reviewers to calm down a bit in order to see people's true opinions. Lots of people thought Outriders was good at launch, and it took a good few weeks for people to notice that the game systems were balked. Lots of people loved the first 5 to 10 hours of Cyberpunk, but changed their minds after they'd played it longer. Let other people play it. Check the reviews 2 to 3 weeks post launch, when everyone has calmed the fuck down and played enough to see if it's got legs and the systems really work. What are my predictions? It will certainly be oversold. It could be the next Fallout 4 in space. It could be the next Fallout 76 in space. Wait a few weeks to see if there are riots in the streets, because I have no doubt they will not be giving out refunds to anyone unless you bought it on Steam and refunded it within 2 hours. I hope to almighty fuck that Starfield has an amazing story, brilliant quests, a fantastic and creative base building system, mechanically meaningful ship customization. Because if it doesn't, well, so far I haven't seen anything to get excited about. This looks like someone collided Everspace with No Man's Sky and made it on the enormous scale of Cyberpunk 2077. This might end up being my new favourite game, but so far it looks like a giant open world shithole, full of boredom and Todd Howard's procedurally generated bullshit. But for now, good luck and happy hunting.
Because whatever lies at the end of this road will change humanity forever.